YouTube, Awesome Writer here. Welcome to another revisiting series where we are revisiting and looking back on Abaranger in honor of the Sentai 50th anniversary. I didn't get too much feedback in the last video about whether I should do the videos like this with audio only or with, interspicing it with footage of me. I think I'll just do it at random. Today, I feel like just doing audio, but maybe for Bakuryu or Abaranger, I will feel like showing my face on camera. But thank you to the few of you that left feedback about that. But Abaranger, Whacker Wilson. That's all I need to say. Until next time, we'll be covering Abaranger tier list, S tier for Whacker Wilson. Anyways, guys, Awesome Writer signing out. I'm joking, but this is one of my personal favorite Sentai series. It was a series I didn't watch till much later. There's not too much of an interesting story about it. It was just one that I wasn't like, oh, I gotta watch it right away, or it wasn't available or anything. Just one day it was on YouTube, and I'm like, let's watch Abaranger, and that's the story behind that. And I really, really enjoyed this series, and it was an interesting experience because it's funny how you can compare and contrast Hurricaneger and Abaranger, Ninja Storm and Dino Thunder, because Abaranger and Hurricaneger are both sillier series, but you can also still take them seriously when they get to a story beat or a character beat. Something I think Gojuger is severely lacking. It almost feels like a parody series that's trying to play it straight. Whereas with Abaranger and Hurricaneger, even though they would get absolutely crazy silly with wigs and stuff, when they wanted you to have a character development moment and take a moment seriously or be involved in the mythology, you could. And it's funny that Hurricaneger and Abaranger were both like that, but Dino Thunder was not at all like that compared to Ninja Storm keeping the silliness from Hurricaneger. I mean, there was some silly moments in any Power Rangers series like Dino Thunder, but I think that's very interesting. And the silliness was definitely very different, but the reason I like Abaranger is it's not a perfect catch-all. But I think it's, in general, a really good catch-all of, like, all you can experience from Sentai, because you have the wacky silliness, even going too far with the silliness sometimes, but you also have great characters, great character development, and character arcs, and you have a well-thought-out lore and world. That's one of my favorite things about Sentai 2, is every year they get to reimagine the world and come up with a whole new mythology and how it works, because they're free of the restrictions of being in a shared universe, even though they're in one of the most messy, garbage, quote-unquote, shared universes I've ever seen in my life. But in general, when they're planning out these universes, it's like, all bets are off. You don't have to think about, oh, what did Hurricaneger do? Like, no, you make your own lore. And it was a really interesting lore there. And so it was a great mix of, you kind of got all the flavors of Sentai. I think it definitely feels more silly and wacky leaning, but in general, I think it's a good sampler platter of all the different tones you can get for Sentai, and I really loved the interesting world they created with Dino Earth and how that tied to the Black Ranger. I think this is one of the characters, actually I think in general, any of Tommy's mantles I have a hard time seeing as not Tommy. Like, I think watching any other Sentai, when I'm watching Sentai or PR, I can very easily see, like, oh, that's Bridge, that's Sen. I can see the two different character mantles, but I still, when Abare Black transforms, I'm like, oh my god, he just transformed into Tommy. But even setting that aside, I loved his storyline actually being from there, how that tied to the Zeltrax armor, which was a very different storyline here that was like tied very personally to him, and it was much better than, this guy got a promotion, I'm gonna get revenge. And I just loved the lore behind that and his character and how that was involved. I always liked Abare Blue, I think, coming off of Lost and Found in Translation. I don't know, I just liked his character, like this jerk chiropractor character. But especially Abare Killer. This is my favorite Sentai Power Ranger suit of all time, and I like Trent fine. Like, I don't hate him, but I like him fine, but even though it's my favorite suit, I don't care for the character as much, but this one of my all-time favorite Sentai characters, the closest we'll ever get to a full-time evil Sentai character. I don't mean like, we have evil characters in Sentai, but evil Sentai Ranger. We've had so many characters that come in as a rogue evil character and get redeemed, or whatever the hell they were doing with, I forget the name of the purple one in Down Brothers, but what the hell was that? Like, did he even need to be there? I mean, his suit was awesome, but like, what the hell? Anyway, I really want that. Like, a character that's a ranger, full-time, treated like the rest of the cast, characterization, design, but stays evil the whole time. Obviously, Abare Killer got a redemption storyline. It was wonderful. One of my favorite villain storylines and redemption storylines in Sentai. But the fact that he stayed evil most of the time was as closest as I'm ever going to get to seeing that. Like, I would just love to see a full-time villain ranger, but just such a fantastic character there. I loved the humor in this. Sometimes it could go too far, but it felt very endearing to me. It kind of felt like, and I think you should leave sketch, where you hit that point where, like, this is so absurd, I hate it. But then you're like, wait, I actually kind of love this. That's kind of what it felt like with Abaranger sometimes with their bits. And I also love having like the talking dinosaurs that left this endearing element to it. Kind of crazy how many elements just wholesale were not in Dino Thunder at all. And then you have Whacker Wilson. I forget what his name is. It's a different name in Abaranger, but it's Whacker Wilson forever for me. The timeline was changed when Lost and Found in Translation came out. His name is now Whacker Wilson everywhere. Even the actor, his name is Whacker Wilson. My name is Whacker Wilson. So anyway, how many times do I say Whacker Wilson in this? Don't take a shot every time I say that unless it's water. Stay hydrated, folks. But yeah, Lost and Found in Translation was actually my first exposure to Abaranger, and what a ahead of its time episode, especially considering the now over a decade of Sentai purist conversations. And I feel like it would be interesting if an episode like this came out today, or if it was in Dino Fury or something. I think it would be received differently from all the Eagletonian Sentai purists out there and their stuck-up noses at all this. But what a cool episode. And it's very different than the Abaranger episode in a lot of ways, but it's still really neat that they did that. And it's kind of funny. I guess there is an interesting journey, because every time I do one of these videos, I talk about the journey of me watching these series. And I have the ones I did this rewatch and I hated the series and then I loved it. And this one was hey, I just watched it on YouTube. But I guess I did first experienced this via Dino Thunder, which was rather cool. And this is such a great example of me loving both the Sentai and the Ranger almost equally. I guess almost equally, because I think Abaranger is my 4th or 5th favorite Sentai, and Dino Thunder is my all-time favorite. But they're so different, you can't even compare them. It's fun to compare them, but very little elements from Abaranger made it into Dino Thunder, and I love that. As much as I think the Disney style of adaptation was well done generally with stuff like Magiranger or Dekaranger, where they took kind of the outline and colored it in very differently. I love when they just do whatever they want. Who cares what the Sentai did? I love that. If we ever go back to adaptations, I'd like to keep that. RPM and Dino Thunder, I think, are the shining examples of that. But anyway, that's enough about Power Rangers. Overall, Abaranger, I love the series. I was so happy when we got the 20 years later. I know there were some mixed opinions on the story of that, and I think there was some missed potential, with the story there. But in general, it was one of the best Returns movies for me in terms of making it feel like the series. There's always something slightly different and off when you revisit a series in general, but usually the Returns movies feel very different than the series did. But this, I think, locked in the feeling of an Abaranger episode. So for me, I believe this is the first S tier on this ranking list. But anyways, guys, let me know what you thought of Abaranger. Maybe you'll see my face for Dekaranger. We'll see. Who wants to see that? I certainly don't. But until next time, Dawson Ryder, signing out.